In the 176th episode of American Reveille with James Lane, I'm going to tell you the entire story surrounding the rape cover-up in Loudoun County, Virginia. More importantly, I'm going to ask the questions that we're not supposed to be asking. Questions about the validity of left-wing ideas and ideology. Questions that expose the left-wing self-God complex, and questions that make us ask ourselves why we should even care about their feelings, their truths, or their beliefs when they obviously and explicitly don't care about ours. Through hand-picked news articles injected with my own research, experience, and understanding, you and I are going to piece together an unbelievable story about a parasitic ideology hell-bent on a corrupt and vile symbiosis with our American way of life. I say parasitic ideology because it seems to somehow infect people, radicalize them, fundamentally change not only who they are and how they act, but more importantly, how they rationalize those actions. So let's have a discussion about the cover-up, the backlash from parents, the attack against the parents from the county itself, the following apologies, and now the resignations. But more importantly, let's talk about how the left systematically force feeds their gender ideology to our children and why we need to stop it if we want to save our country. Next on American Reveille with James Lane. Coming to you from deep behind enemy lines, hidden among the bald and the bearded in the Pacific Northwest, I remain armed and vigilant as we await exodus to the Oklahoma territory. Until then, wifey Dragon Lady keeps us stocked up with 3 to 6 months of food and supplies, not to mention plenty of ammunition. This, my friends, is the 176th episode of American Reveille with James Lane, and for those who don't know me, I, of course, am James Lane. Speaking of people who don't know me, this may be the only episode you ever see of mine because I'll probably be canceled from the face of the internet once the left gets a hold of it. I'm already shadow banned since September 2020 on most platforms, podcast sites, video sites, you name it. So trust me when I say that complete and total cancellation is next. So what are we doing about it? Well, so far, I've compiled a listing of every conservative AM radio talk station, their managers, and all of their information in Washington State, Idaho, Oregon, Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, and more. I'm doing that so we can bypass social media and beat the censorship back through some of our older technology. And it's only a matter of time before the American Reveille is on a talk station near you. But even though I'm fighting really, really hard for all of us, I can't do it alone. I sincerely need your help. So here are a few quick things that you can do to help the American Reveille beat back the censors and save our country. First things first, if you're watching or listening to this on your phone or computer, immediately hit the thumbs up or the star on this episode and then share it all over your social media platforms. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Second, please head over to www.americanreveille.com. That's REVEILLE.com and bookmark it. That's our digital publication and really the hub for all things American Reveille. We've made major strides in this area. We really believe, I truly believe, in fact, I argue that it's cleaner and easier to navigate than Dan Bongino's site or even Ben Shapiro's site. Really, give it a try, AmericanReveille.com. That's REVEILLE.com. Please bookmark the site before I disappear off your feed and you never, ever see me again. And finally, hit the button that says newsletter. When you go to AmericanReveille.com, you'll see a button that says newsletter. I send a weekly newsletter out Monday mornings containing all the articles and episodes you missed from the previous week. Also, once a month, I send you a detailed status of American Reveille, our mission, and what we've accomplished for that month so that you are part of our family too. I really want to include as many people as I can, so please sign up for the newsletter before I disappear. Family doesn't have to pay a dime if they don't want to, so I'm not asking you for any money, all right? I'm not asking you for a penny. I'm just asking you for a few moments of your time. Everybody's got a few moments to spare. Just a few moments of your time so we can save this country for our children together. We can't do it alone. I need your help, all right? We have to do it together. So again, that's www.americanreveille.com. And if you have any questions at all, any questions, please email me directly, jameslane@americanreveille.com. I have an amazing show for you today, folks. We're going to ask some forbidden questions, some questions that the left is going to be very, very pissed off with me about. But I don't care. I don't care because I'm very, very pissed off, beyond pissed off with them. All right. I'm pissed off with the left beyond belief. And you should be too. You absolutely should be. All right. This entire topic, everything we talk about in this show today, it's off limits. But you know, as a father with young daughters, I'm absolutely and unequivocally done. I'm done placating the other communities and their imaginary rules, regulations, and ideologies. All right. But before we get to the Loudoun County story, I want to start this episode off with a dream that I had recently. And don't worry, it's not going to get too weird. All right. This is something that'll set the stage for the episode and get your brain nice and warmed up. Some fuel for your thinking caps with a little tiny nugget of hidden wisdom deep inside. So I had a dream last night, guys. I'm telling you, I had a dream and it was very deep. It was a very deep dream. And I don't dream often. All right. I don't dream often. I don't sleep very good. I really don't. But this time, all right, it was a deep sleep. It was a vivid dream. And I want to give you this dream. I want to give it to you as a gift because I know it contains some answers to some of our current problems. All right. I'm not selfish. I'm not trying to say that in a boasting manner. I just want you to have it and do with it what you will. All right. Do with it what you will. I just want you to try and do something good with it. All right. So check this out. In my dream, I'm flying over the water. It's a cool day. It's kind of hazy. I'm flying over the water like an eagle soaring the lines and curves of a raging river. And lo and behold, right below me, there it is, this raging river. All right. I'm gliding on the wind. And the feeling, it's unlike anything I can explain in words. It's almost as if, just for a second, I am the eagle. And the eagle is me. As I soar the sky, I feel the cold wind rushing past my dark feathers. I extend my wings back and I begin to glide down closer and closer to the river. Everything seemed to be in harmony. Every movement I made and feeling that I experienced could only be described as automatic. It was magical. It was meant to be. But as I neared the water, I noticed something strange. The river, it was split down the middle, right down the center. And not only was the river split, but the water strangely flowed in two different, almost opposing directions. On one side, the current flowed north towards the snow-capped mountains, and on the other side, the current flowed south, and it dumped into a great bay, a great large bay, guys. Now, something was horribly wrong. Both the mountain to the north and the bay to the south, they were dying. Almost as if no life existed in these areas anymore, throwing the natural order of things into chaos and catastrophe. Worst of all, the salmon that were in the river on both sides, they were swimming against the current. And even though the currents were raging, the fish, they didn't move from their spot. It's as if they were stuck in perpetual motion. Now, they were all salmon, and you could only tell them apart based upon the direction that they were desperately trying to swim in. As I watched, I began to see thousands and thousands of large eagles appear. So many, in fact, so many, they seemed like a swarm of locusts in the sky. And to my horror, they began ripping the exhausted salmon out from both sides of the river, regardless of the direction of the current, consuming them by the thousands. I screamed to the remaining fish. I cried out. I begged for them to stop swimming and just ride the current to safety. I begged them to work together, but they just couldn't hear me. They were too busy bickering with one another as they were all eaten alive. And that, my friends, that's when I realized the terrifying truth. I wasn't the eagle. Deep, right? Now I feel like I know what this dream means, but I want to give you a chance to tell me what you think. So do me a favor. Either leave a comment on my social media, all right? Leave a comment below. Everywhere at American_Reveille, all right? You can find me all over social media. Getter, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm shadow banned across the freaking realm, but if you dig deep enough, you can find me American_Reveille. All right. Let me know what you think this dream means. You can also email me directly, jameslane@AmericanReveille.com, or just go to the website, American Reveille, REVEILLE.com. The last button on the right is the contact form. You can fill out a contact form. Let me know what you think. I'm really, really, really interested. I want to know. All right. So on to brass tacks. So on to Loudoun County. I want to say, though, that it's time to stop sugarcoating the issue for the sake of political correctness and inclusivity, all right? It's time to stop. We've been so nice. We've been so sweet. We've been so good to you, lefties. We've been so nice for so long, all right? And where has it gotten us? Where's it gotten us, guys? We've given so much rope to the government. And we never bothered to look at the spool, all right? We never bothered to look back and see how much rope we had left. And now we have no rope. And instead of giving back some rope when we ask for it, the left and our own government are trying to hang us with it. So what do? What can we do? Well, the first thing we do is we get our story straight and we start talking about it. So here's what happened. All right, here's exactly what happened. Last week, Breitbart and Daily Wire broke an incredibly disturbing story about a young high school girl raped by a trans student in Loudoun County, Virginia. Now, I know that's hard to hear. I know, but don't change the channel because you need to hear it. We have to have a frank and truthful conversation about this because the school board covered it up to pass their critical race agenda. That's right, folks. Their woke agenda, their ideology, their religion. It was more important. It was more important than the safety of our children. All right? These are educators. We trust these people. All right? And this is an agenda. All right, that's appearing all over the country, trickling down from the top, finding its way into our public school systems and everywhere else we look nowadays. So I want to say this clearly. The school board covered up a rape. Not only did they cover up a rape, but they lied about it. All right, they lied about it and then had the girl's father arrested for being upset about it and calling them out in public. Are you awake yet? Did you hear me? You should be not only furious, you should be terrified at the same time. All right, guys, from Breitbart.com, Dr. Susan Berry writes the following. A father is claiming the Loudoun County School District attempted to cover up his daughter's alleged assault in the girls' bathroom at Stonebridge High School by a boy wearing a skirt. Scott Smith was arrested in June at a school in Loudoun County, Virginia, during a school board meeting at which hundreds of parents voiced concerns about the district's transgender policy and critical race theory. A month earlier, Smith claimed a boy who was wearing a skirt had entered the girl's bathroom at the high school and sexually assaulted his 9th grade daughter. 9th grade, folks. According to the report, Smith's attorney, Elizabeth Lancaster, said the boy was charged, are you ready, with 2 counts of forcible sodomy, 1 count of anal sodomy, and 1 count of forcible fellatio that day at school. Smith said the school told him they would handle the incident of his daughter's assault in-house. In-house. So let's be clear, folks. A transgender student, all right, a transgender student, you can see my invisible quote marks, went into the girl's bathroom, all right, that thing that lefties, they claim, say, and plead for it to be a right of the transgender community, that they can just go into any bathroom they so choose, all right? This transgender student went into the girl's bathroom and raped what could have been my daughter or your daughter. It was somebody's daughter. It was Scott's daughter. This monster didn't just force a kiss on the girl or try to grope her. Both unacceptable. No. He forced the girl into fellatio, 2 counts of sodomy, and 1 count of anal sodomy. You know what that means? All right. For those that aren't educated in the subject, that means this wasn't quick. This happened in a school bathroom. And now the school's telling me not to go to the cops as a parent, that they'll handle it in-house? Really? I don't know. I don't know how this dad didn't snap and go postal. I don't. All right? If anything, he shouldn't have been arrested. He should have been given a medal for patience. All right? But anyway, the dad gets arrested. Let's read. The father's arrest came during a board meeting at which the board ordered the room cleared as attendees grew more upset with comments that were made. A sheriff's deputy ultimately declared the meeting an unlawful assembly and ordered the crowd to disperse or be subject to arrest for trespassing. Just prior to Smith's arrest at the meeting, the Loudoun County Public School Superintendent told attendees opposed to the transgender bathroom policy that their concerns were unfounded since the school district had no records of any assaults having taken place in school bathrooms. All right. Right from the beginning, he lies and says they have no idea what's happening. All right. An LGBTQ activist at the meeting. This is what happens next. They reportedly then told Smith his daughter's claim, all right, her claim of the rape, her claim of the assault wasn't believable. All right. It wasn't believable because the school said there was no record of the assault. Smith said with that statement, he, quote, went nuts, insulted the principal, and was subsequently arrested. Let me tell you, the principal is lucky. The principal's lucky, all right, superintendent, principal, whatever, that dad didn't put him in the hospital. Because if that happened to my kid, all right, if that happened to my daughter, I'd literally blow a head gasket. All right, I don't think I'd have any self-control if I spoke the truth about my daughter's rape in the school bathroom, all right, and the principal, superintendent, whatever, called me a liar, while some self-righteous POS LGBTQ holier-than-thou activist rubbed my nose in dog poop at the expense of my traumatized child? Make no mistake, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened, all right? What happened to hashtag #MeToo? What happened to women's empowerment? What happened to equality? Huh? None of that counts. None of that counts when the transgender community is involved. All right. It seems that whenever they're involved, at least whatever this militant radical sect of them are, whenever they're involved, nothing counts. Everything's off the table. Their way or the highway. An entire school board, all right, the teaching staff and their activist lackeys sacrificed a young American girl to the woke socialist false gods. They hid her rape from a public. All right. They hid her rape from a public forum, and they hid her rape from the general public because they determined that protecting their wicked ideology was the right thing to do. Morally, to them, it was the right thing to do. Let me say this one more time. They believe that what they're doing is the right thing to do. The arrest from this article didn't happen yesterday, folks. It happened June 22nd. June 22nd, folks. That means it took 4 entire months for us to hear about it. The story should be on the cover of every single major newspaper and publication in the country, but instead, no, it's meaningless because the LGBTQ community can do no harm in the eyes of the mainstream media, the public school systems, big tech, big business, and scariest of all, the Department of Justice. In previous episodes, guys, I've said that I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine with everybody having their own community. I'm very libertarian in that aspect. Live and let live, all right? This is America. You be over there. I'll be me over here. We can meet in the middle, maybe trade once in a while, you know, and then via con Dios. Bye-bye. Live your life, all right? Live it over there. I don't have to agree. I don't have to agree with your way of life to accept and support the fact that you're entitled to your own pursuit of happiness, whatever that may be, just as I am to mine, just as my children are to theirs, free from manipulation. But listen to me very, very closely. Come here. Get closer to the speaker and listen very closely. When you come onto my lawn and you tell me how to live my life, now we have problems. When you come onto my lawn, break into my house, and rape my children, well, now, my friend, now we have, as us once young kids once called it, major beef. All right, compadre? Major beef. And that's where we are right now. And I'm not the only parent that feels this way. No, I'm not. In fact, we come from all walks of life. We come in all colors, all shapes, sizes, and oh, would you look at that? I guess we're now united. So now the plot thickens as parents begin to find out what happened in Loudoun County. All right. This is from Emily Zanotti of the Daily Wire. Loudoun County School Board blasted over Daily Wire sex assault report. Parents demand resignations. Let's read. The Loudoun County Public School Board was under fire during the public meeting it had Tuesday night, following a blockbuster report from the Daily Wire alleging that the district covered up a sexual assault that happened in one of its high schools. Parents and other individuals logged on to the meeting to blast the board for hiding evidence of the assault. Fight for Schools Loudoun County, which has been pressing for a recall of the full school board. The entire school board also demanded that the full board resign in the wake of the explosive report. They said that more than 60 concerned parents, students, and residents spoke at the Loudoun County School Board meeting Tuesday night, with many demanding the resignation of Loudoun County Superintendent Scott Zeegler in the wake of allegations that the school district covered up 2 alleged sexual assaults. I'll say that again. 2 sexual assaults. 2. Each person with comment was required to enter the boardroom by themselves, and each person was given just 1 minute to speak. The comment portion of the meeting house became contentious almost immediately, with most of the ire directed at Loudoun County Superintendent Scott Zeegler. Scott's the guy, all right? Listen, Scott's the guy that told Dad that his daughter's rape was a fairy tale, was make-believe. So yeah, he deserves it, all right? He deserves to get heck, all right? He deserves to catch flack for this. Here's what some of the parents had to say. This is not China. This is the United States of America, and we will not be silenced. Remove the superintendent immediately and then resign for your negligence and duplicity. End this nightmare. Here's another parent. The transgender bathroom policy was rushed through to a vote without consideration for the safety of all students, simply to satisfy the liberal agenda. A policy that you knew full well would allow our children to be abused inside our schools. Another woman who said she also had children at LCPS added that Zeegler's moral compass is busted. It's busted. And accused the board of being complicit in the 2 sexual assaults that occurred in area high schools. Quote, because you did nothing about it. She makes a great point. You did nothing. Therefore, you're complicit. Therefore, you allowed it to happen. You condoned it. Frankly, folks, my comments, they'd be laced with explicitives. Here's another parent. There's something seriously wrong with a system that prioritizes reporting a rape internally to the superintendent so that they can control the narrative instead of calling the police. And here is another. All right. It just keeps going. It just keeps going. Look at this. Hiding evidence. And every parent from LCPS, all right, hiding evidence from every parent from LCPS about a heinous sexual assault of a student that occurred in a bathroom so you could pass radical policy 8040 is more important to you than protecting the dignity and safety of our children against the likelihood of a repeat occurrence. What's worse than a child being raped at school? The cover-up by those who are trusted with the safety and well-being of those children, another parent said. Today, Scott Zeegler must resign for the unconscionable act of allowing an alleged rapist back into school to rape again. And for the cover-up. You hear that, folks? You heard 2 sexual assaults. You're starting to put the picture together, the puzzle pieces together. This didn't happen just once. Another pointed out that the school members knew of the alleged bathroom rape when they held the meeting to discuss the transgender bathroom policy. And finally, one parent even called the board a blight on our country and our schools. They demanded that you all resign immediately. And parents absolutely have a right to be pissed off. And frankly, every American should be pissed off. If this event isn't a call to action, then I don't know what is. And if people don't wake up after this, then we're truly lost, ladies and gentlemen. The people following this woke and divisive ideology are truly indoctrinated into the cult and they're apostles of this proverbial Armageddon. They wave the flags, they carry the banner, they sing the mantra, they bleed for their cause. And what's their cause? The destruction of our way of life and its replacement with their way of life. Just look around you. Just look around you. We have plandemics everywhere. Homeless children, slaves to drugs and alcohol. They litter the streets of blue cities across this country. Hundreds of thousands. All right, that's a lot of zeros. Hundreds of thousands of children disappear every year into sex trafficking. The border's destroyed. It's not even there. Energy is gone. It's destroyed. The economy is on life support. Can you hear the beeping? Beep, beep, beep. This isn't a coincidence, folks. There's no such thing as coincidence. You say, but how could anyone knowingly do something so horrible to their own people? Simple. It's simple, folks. Progressive ideology twists the story, changes the words, erases the history conveniently, and it brainwashes its followers into believing that they're godlike saviors of their own imaginary little worlds. So, when there are no consequences, chaos reigns. And when accountability dies, so too dies society. And even as parents collectively rage across the country like burning flames rising with dense and imposing smoke, the local government in Loudoun County stares directly into the face of the parents, doubles down, and attacks Scott Smith. The story continues as we find out about the second incident from John Nolte, Breitbart News. Loudoun County Public Schools released a statement Wednesday defending the cover-up of an alleged rape while attacking the victim's father. Here's a quick rundown of what happened in Loudoun County, Virginia, for those just joining us. On May 28th, the 15-year-old daughter of a father in question, Scott Smith, says she was brutally raped and sodomized in a Stonebridge High School girls' bathroom by a boy who gained entry by wearing a skirt and identifying as gender fluid. All right. According to the Daily Wire, who first reported the story, this boy was criminally charged with 2 counts of forcible sodomy, 1 count of anal sodomy, and 1 count of forcible fellatio. The suspect was not arrested until late July or early August, as Breitbart News had reported. Apparently, after the incident, the school system simply transferred him. They transferred this kid to another school because on October 6th, this same boy was charged with forcing a girl into an empty classroom and touching her inappropriately at Broad Run High School in Ashburn, Virginia. However, just a few weeks after the May 28th rape allegation, the Loudoun County School Board held a meeting to advance a policy that would allow biological males to use the girls' bathrooms and locker rooms. You know, folks, it really doesn't take a rocket surgeon to figure out that the school board didn't want to upset their financiers by failing to pass their dangerous, paid-for woke agenda. They literally thought it would be better to bury the rape, transfer the trans, and wash their hands of it than report the truth to the public. It's absolutely despicable. It's absolutely despicable, and it shows just how far gone these people are. Back to the article. At this June 22nd meeting, LCPS Superintendent Scott Zeegler flat out lied to those assembled when he said, quote, "The predator transgender student or person simply does not exist." Poof. We don't have any record of assaults occurring at our restrooms. And this is when the alleged victim's father, Scott Smith, decided to speak. But instead of hearing him out, the school board silenced him by having him tackled and arrested by police officers. If that's not outrageous enough, in an effort to have parents opposed to critical race theory and this transgender madness treated as domestic terrorists by the federal government, Smith's arrest was cited by the National School Board Association in a letter demanding federal law enforcement protection. Did you catch that, Mom and Dad? This is the exact case that Joe Biden's Department of Justice is trying to use to label parents as terrorists. Literally. If your child is raped by a trans student, a gender fluid student, an LGBTQ LMNOP student, and you open your mouth and you speak up, you could be labeled a domestic terrorist and your life could be destroyed. No accountability and no consequences for anything. These folks lie, they cheat, they steal, and then they gaslight all of us. They gaslight all of us like psychotic, overbearing, enabling mothers. When will you realize these people just don't have different ideas, all right? They literally have different core values than us, all right? They have different core values, and they wholeheartedly believe that they're righteous in their cause and in their actions. So I have to ask, why should we care about what they think or say anymore? Huh? Tell me, Mom and Dad, why should we care? Why did we ever care? Look, the county not only covers up for the crime, all right? It not only tries to cover up the crime, but it literally, sickeningly, tries to justify its own cover-up. Just listen to this. Listen to this. Once a matter has been reported to law enforcement, LCPS does not begin its investigation until law enforcement advises LCPS that it has completed the criminal investigation. To maintain the integrity of the criminal investigation, law enforcement requested that LCPS not interview students until their investigation was concluded. LCPS has cooperated and continues to cooperate with law enforcement. It's the cops' fault, guys. It's not our fault. The cops did it. Furthermore, LCPS is prohibited from disciplining any students without following the Title IX grievance process, which includes investigating complaints of sexual harassment and sexual assault. LCPS does impose interim measures to protect the safety of students involved in the original incident, deter retaliation, and preserve the integrity of the investigation and resolution process. BS. School board members are typically not given details of disciplinary matters. Excuse me? What? The board may be obligated to consider long-term suspensions or expulsions and must ensure that students have not been deprived of due process. Oh, poor transgender rapist. We can't deprive him of his due process. Consequently, members of the Loudoun County School Board were not aware of the specific details of this incident until it was reported in media outlets earlier this week. We're unable to locate any records that indicate that Scott Smith had registered in advance to speak at the June 22nd, 2021 school board meeting. The entire statement from the county, this entire statement is a twisting of the truth, or as we honorable people like to call it, a flat out lie. Remember, the school said to Scott not to go to the police because they'd handle it. Remember? They'd handle it. By not reporting it to the police, the school bought itself some time. When the dad found out nothing was happening, he filed the subsequent reports, maybe, and then got arrested for making it public at the school board meeting back in June. Since the cops were investigating it at that point, the school could not be blamed. Instead, it could then blame the investigation for their inaction. All right? It could literally blame the investigation itself for the reason they didn't do anything. And then just transfer the kid to another school. Again, there's no records because the school told dad they'd handle it, which means that there's no paper trail because they didn't handle it. See? A truthful lie right up the left's alley. And they would have gotten away with it too. They really would have. They would have gotten away with it too if they didn't try to cover for the superintendent. If they didn't try to take care of their own people. The superintendent apologized for lying. All right? He came out and apologized. All right? For not telling the truth. And when he did that, with this having come out as well from the county, he accidentally exposed them all. From the Daily Wire, Loudoun County Superintendent apologizes following Daily Wire investigation, claims he misunderstood question about bathroom sex acts. The Loudoun County Public Schools Superintendent held a press conference Friday where he apologized for the district's shortcomings with regard to reporting sexual assault. He shifted blame for an incident the Daily Wire reported on earlier this week and appeared to blame the federal government and implicitly the Trump administration for confusion on Title IX procedures. Zeegler began his address by expressing empathy for the students involved in the case made public by the Daily Wire this week in a report which suggests that LCPS concealed evidence of an alleged sexual assault at one of the high schools, a decision which led to a second alleged sexual assault. That's the second one we've been talking about. So listen, folks, listen to this twisted, insincere, non-sincere, garbage statement from the superintendent, all right? This is the one that lied to Dad, all right? He's full of crap. I just want you to hear this. It says, "My heart aches for you, and I'm so sorry that we failed to provide the safe, welcoming, and affirming environment that we all aspire to provide. We acknowledge and share in your pain and will continue to offer support to help you and your families through this trauma that you caused. For all of our students, our school-based unified mental health teams are available to anyone who needs care." All right? This is such a weasel thing to say. It's so insincere. It's such nonsense. All right? It doesn't mean a thing. He doesn't mean it. Look what else he said. It's important to know, all right? He's blaming things here. Listen, he's blaming Title IX first. It's important to know that Title IX directs how schools must investigate allegations of sexual harassment, assault, and provide equal protection for both victims and the alleged perpetrators. Throughout these recent events, the Loudoun County Public Schools complied with our obligations under Title IX. However, we found the process outlined under Title IX by the U.S. Department of Education to be insufficient in addressing issues at K through 12. We believe the process could be strengthened with some reforms. All right, you know what they're talking about, right? They don't believe it covers the rights. All right, the rights of the rapist, the transgender rapist. That's what he's talking about. He says, moving forward, it's essential that we're consistent in our practices across the country. We're taking positive steps in that direction. This lack of oversight that existed prior to my tenure also contributed to errors in our state reporting regarding disciplinary incidents in schools. The division inadvertently omitted some information in the past, and that's extremely concerning. It was the guy before me, folks. The guy before me forgot. That's crazy. I can't believe he did that. I'm on your side. That's literally doublespeak. All right, that's what he just said. That's what he just said means. All right, it was the guy before me. None of this is my fault. Believe me, I'm with you guys. That's literally psychological, subliminal program nonsense. He's literally trying to hypnotize you into thinking he's a good guy with that statement, and it's not working on any of us. It's not working on any of us. All right, it says we're taking steps to make sure that the processes are improved. I'll say that I have no reason to believe at this time that any missing reports were due to an intent to hide any information from the Virginia Department of Education. In the future, we'll report these events in real time and make corrections. So in the future, there won't be delays, even though I don't believe there were any delays. This guy is a babbling moron. He's really a babbling moron. We can see right through this insincere nonsense. We really, really, really can. It says that this new real-time system will help ensure more accuracy in our Department of Education reports. So, wow. They want reforms across the country, huh? That'll fix it. Socialized reforms, huh? Big government fixes everything, huh? These Marxists, they're all the same. They're all cut from the same cloth. He's blaming Title IX, the Department of Education. He's blaming the local processes. He's blaming everybody but himself. But we all know the truth. We all know the truth. The reason that nothing happened is because nobody cared. No one cared about a traumatized and raped 15-year-old more than they cared about covering for their agenda and covering their own butts. And for that, every single teacher, administrator, school cop, mascot, anybody, janitor, I don't care, anybody with knowledge of this that didn't do anything about it, that sat on their hands at the orders of this superintendent and anybody else because the ideology would have failed because they wouldn't have passed their bathroom policy, they should all be fired and prosecuted to the furthest extent of the law. And the most insulting part of the statement is Zeeglers' excuse for what happened when Dad brought up the rape case to the school board back in June. His excuse? His excuse is confusion. Yet, I call it evil. I call it incompetence. Quote, Board member Bartz asked a question about discipline incidents in the bathrooms that I wrongly interpreted as incidents involving transgender and gender-fluid students. I did this because I was viewing the question in light of the general questions and debate around Policy 8040 that was occurring at the time. Multiple board members asked questions about the processes, the experiences of the students, and plans for transgender students and bathroom use during the discussion. My mindset was just in line with that subject. At another point in that conversation, Chair Sheridan asked a question specifically about incidents involving transgender students, and I responded in the same manner. I regret that my comments were misleading, and I apologize for the distress that error caused the families. I should have asked board member Bart's clarifying questions to get the root of her question, all right? I should have asked those qualifying questions rather than assuming what she meant. I will do better in the future. I'll do better in the future. His answer, his literal answer is, oops, I was confused. I'm sorry I forgot. I'm sorry I didn't care that your daughter got raped. I'm so sorry. But hey, I used proper pronouns, right? All's forgiven, right? Wrong. You're not forgiven. None of you are forgiven. This is the real world. This is real truth and consequence. And when children are being raped in the name of equity, that's called insanity. That's called sexual child abuse. That's a cause for war. You don't get to change the facts of reality. Call it your truth. And then expect everyone to conform to it because feelings are more important than facts, according to you. Not anymore, you don't. Again, why do we care about their feelings? Why do we placate them? Why do we play nice with insane people? Why do we play insane games with insane people? The government and all governing bodies, including the school boards, derive their power from the people. You'll realize how powerful you actually are when you come together as a group and you stand for something real. And you stand for something real. The parents of Loudoun County are standing together, and as of right now, one of the school board members, Beth Bartz, has already resigned from her position. Just imagine what we could accomplish if parents from all backgrounds, all colors, all shapes, all sizes stood together shoulder to shoulder across the entire United States. And for the folks who were caught off guard by what happened in Loudoun County, I'm here to inform you that these things, unfortunately, have been happening for years now. As Morpheus once said to Neo, welcome to the desert of the real. The progressive elites have been infiltrating all facets of American life for decades now. Not days, not weeks, not months, not years, decades. Using our largest and most trusted industries against us. All right? They turned everything against us by programming our children, changing our culture, destroying our institutions, and poisoning our systems right under our noses. And under the guise of inclusivity, they made the new Superman bisexual. And when we ask politely not to distribute this material to our children, we're called bigots. We're called racists. They call us close-minded fools. They look down on us. They look down on their noses at us like we're idiots. And they need to make decisions for us because we're subhuman. According to their ideology, we're not just inferior, we're evil. Justifying their actions with this sickening self-superiority, a big part of the progressive self-God complex is just that, is believing that you're the end-all be-all, that your creations are pure and precious and should be worshipped. The elites running our institutions, they're ripe full of this progressive self-God complex. And they're giving us a clue, all right? They give us a clue as to who's behind our children's confusion, destruction, and brainwashing, all right? They leave clues all throughout their work. They're sloppy like that. They're careless. They think we're stupid. Like I said, they think we're idiots. So they don't put the care into their work that they would need to not be discovered, that they were doing something wicked to this country, to our institutions, to our children. All right? Make no mistake about it. Their intentions are evil. You see, when they made Superman bisexual the other week, they figured that was a good middle ground, a good starting point to begin conditioning our kids with. It packed just enough of a punch to make parents want nothing to do with it at all. That way, we'd miss the real story. The actual message they want to send to our kids. Bisexual Superman was the carrier signal. All right? He was the carrier signal, but hating America. Now, that's the actual radio wave. That's the actual programming. From Jerome Hudson at Breitbart, Superman abandons fight for the American way, and now he stands for a better tomorrow. 1 week after DC Comics' decision to make the new Superman bisexual, the comic book publisher announces that after more than a half a century, the Man of Steel is no longer fighting for truth, justice, and the American way. No, he's now standing for truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. Apparently, the American way is not a better tomorrow. Superman's new motto of truth, justice, and a better tomorrow will better reflect the global storylines that we are telling across DC. Global, and to honor the character's incredible legacy of over 80 years of building a better world, said DC Chief Creative Officer and Publisher Jim Lee. Superman has long been a symbol of hope who inspires people from around the world, and it is the optimism and hope that powers him forward with this new mission statement. Even Batman got injected with corporate social responsibility, with woke corporate nonsense. How Nice. I wonder if he had to go to an ethics training class, an equity class, and take some online courses to keep his job. Clark Kent Superman's new motto will be seen in future comic books, film, TV, and video games, the company said. The news comes just after DC Comics announced the new Superman, Jonathan Kent, son of Clark Kent, and Lois Lane, is bisexual. It's the latest abandonment of tradition for the heroic and iconic comic book character. In 2017, Superman saved a group of illegal immigrants from a gun-toting white man wearing an American flag bandana who'd opened up on them. Programming, folks. The following year, the publisher used Superman to celebrate World Refugee Day, reminding readers that Superman is a refugee too. Wow. Don't you see what's happening? Don't you see what they're trying to do? Don't you see that we're being replaced? Our entire way of life is being replaced. Look, America was created to contain many different cultures, backgrounds, beliefs, and freedoms across many different regions. It's a huge country. All of us are diverse and different people living in different places, but sharing most of our core values. The disconnect comes from the core values and belief system. That's where it comes from. And here's the simple truth. We believe in God, and they don't. It's really that simple from a psychological perspective. It doesn't matter if you're Christian, Catholic, Jewish. If you believe in God, real science, and proven statistical data, your core values will be different than theirs. As people who believe in God, honor, and morality, we've been immeasurably patient, haven't we? But it's time to wake up and smell the burning bodies. We believe in God. We respect his teachings. Therefore, we respect his rules, his laws, his creations. The progressive elites and all their ideological worshipers, they believe God doesn't exist. At the very least, they believe he's dead, and therefore, they justify themselves as gods. You heard me right. They justify themselves as gods. There's no consequences for your actions, therefore sin doesn't exist. And because of this deep-rooted core value, all their creations are special because they're akin to God's creations. And when you're God, you can say, do, and be anything you want to be, and it must be accepted. It must be accepted as the truth. Even worse, our belief in God is discredited by them as fairy tales. They laugh it off. They look down their noses. They look down on us. They think we're morons because we believe in God. Don't you see? They think we're hurting our children by teaching them to work hard, by teaching them the benefits of marriage, of the nuclear family, of being heterosexual. There are benefits. There really are. They think teaching our children to love and respect each other, to love and respect their parents, and most importantly, to love and respect God and his laws, they believe that's child abuse. Do you see where I'm coming from? Do you see how our core values are different? So in combination with social media, high-speed internet, and an environment of no accountability or consequence whatsoever, these ideas have mutated into a highly infectious ideological virus, poisoning our entire society. That's the real cure we're looking for. That's the real vaccine we need, folks. Thousands of kids across the country are now trans. All of a sudden, we're supposed to just accept. We're just supposed to accept this with no questions. It just appeared. We can't, nothing. Keep your mouth shut. Beware. Keep your mouth shut, or maybe you'll just get fired. We can't ask why this is happening. That's intolerant. We can't ask if there's anything we can do to stop it, because stopping it implies there's something wrong with it, and that may hurt somebody's feelings. And that's intolerant. Meanwhile, some trans kids are raping our children. Enough is enough. It's time we expose this rot from within and tell the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, this next segment, the last segment of the show, gets me banned forever. From Imprimis, the newsletter from Hillsdale College that you always hear Mark Levin talking about, this is a speech called Gender Ideology Run Amok. Oh yeah, you know what's coming. This is by Abigail Schreier. And if the name sounds familiar, and you really want to know the detailed truth about what's happening to our children, especially our young daughters, she was on episode 1509 of Joe Rogan. All right, catch up on that on Spotify. Everything that I'm about to read to you is factual. It can be checked. The left cancel people over this in a heartbeat. People with way more power and money than I have. They cancel them in the blink of an eye. My only chance is that I'm such a small-time person. I've already been so shadow banned that I'll just slip right under the radar until it's too late for them. But I'm doubting that'll happen. I'll probably disappear. But it's worth it because you need to know this. All right. You need to know this information. This is exactly what's happening to our children. So in 2007, America had one pediatric gender clinic. Today, there are hundreds. There are hundreds, folks. Testosterone is readily available to adolescents from places like Planned Parenthood and Kaiser Permanente, often on a first visit without even a therapist's note. So how did we get to this point? How is it that we're all supposed to pretend that the only way you can know that I'm a woman is if I tell you my pronouns? How did we get to an America in which a 13-year-old in Washington state can begin gender-affirming therapy without her parents' consent? How did we get to an America in which a 15-year-old in Oregon can undergo top surgery? All right? Your 15-year-old daughter getting a double mastectomy without you knowing, without her parents' permission. And what can we even do about it? To understand how we got to this point, it's useful to begin by considering gender dysphoria, the feeling of severe discomfort in a person's biological sex. Gender dysphoria is certainly real. Hear me out. Certainly real, but it's also exceedingly rare. It afflicts about 0.01% of the population, most of whom are male. COVID-19 is more real than gender dysphoria, according to statistics. For nearly 100 years of diagnostic history, gender dysphoria typically began in early childhood, between the ages of 2 and 4, and usually involved a boy who insisted that he was not a boy, but a girl. Children afflicted are insistent, consistent, and persistent in the feeling that they're in the wrong body. It's by all accounts excruciating. I've talked to many transgender adults, most of them biological males, who describe the relentless chafe of a body that feels entirely wrong. Historically, this has been the classic presentation of gender dysphoria. When these children were left alone, when no one intervened medically or encouraged what we call today as social transition, over 70% of them naturally outgrew their gender dysphoria. Most of those who outgrew it became gay men. Those who did not outgrow it became what we used to know as transsexuals. They didn't believe they were women, but they just felt most comfortable presenting themselves as female. Remember what I said earlier? I do me over here, you do you over there, good to go. Today, we don't leave these children alone. Instead, the moment children seem not perfectly feminine or perfectly masculine, we label them as trans kids. Teachers encourage them to reintroduce themselves to their classes with new names and new pronouns. This is happening at schools across the country without you even knowing, parents. We take them to therapists or doctors, nearly all of them, who practice so-called affirmative care, meaning they think it's their job to affirm the diagnosis of gender dysphoria and help the children medically transition, not vet them, not disprove them, not give them a guidance in the right direction. No, just to support them into becoming anything they want to be before their brains develop all the way. The typical first step in treatment administered to these kids is puberty blockers, which shuts down the part of the pituitary gland that directs the release of hormones, catalyzing puberty. The most common of these drugs is Lupron, whose original purpose was the chemical castration of sex offenders. To this day, the FDA has never approved this drug for halting healthy puberty. One has to wonder why a parent or a doctor would take measures to stop a child's puberty, given that even a child with genuine gender dysphoria would most likely just outgrow the condition if left alone. Some argue that it's traumatizing to let children go through the puberty of sex to which they don't wish to belong. But in many cases, puberty seems to help children overcome gender dysphoria. The truth is that there's no satisfying answer, given that scientists have no way of predicting which children will outgrow the dysphoria on their own and which won't. Proponents of affirmative care also argue that allowing puberty to occur is dangerous because suicide rates for trans-identified youth and trans adults are very high. Therefore, they say we need to start treating children with gender dysphoria as soon as dramatically possible. Yet, there's no good long-term studies indicating that puberty blockers cure suicidality or even improve mental health. Nor are there studies that show puberty blockers are safe or even reversible. All of these things the left says, all of these things the progressives peddle, they're lies. You can't stop puberty, then reverse the process 10 years, 15, 20 years later. You can't give hormones. You can't grow a beard and then not grow a beard anymore. It just doesn't work like that. And we don't know what happens to you 20, 30, 40 years in the future. But we do know what happens to you when you do these therapies and turn out that it was a mistake. We can all take a guess, and we'll hear more as we keep reading. What do we know? All right. This is what we know about puberty blockers. What we know is that puberty blockers prevent the development of secondary sex characteristics, sexual maturation, and bone density. Indeed, because of the inhibition of bone density and other risks, doctors don't like to keep children on puberty blockers for more than 2 years. We also know that in almost every case, when a child's healthy puberty is medically arrested, placing the child out of step with his or her peers, that child proceeds to cross-sex hormones. And when puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones are administered to a girl, she becomes infertile. She may also have permanent sexual dysfunction, given that her sexual organs never ever reach adult maturity. Given this, the claims made by so many doctors and gender activists today that these medical transition measures for children are safe and reversible, that they're a pause button without serious downsides, are not only dishonest, but destructive. We wouldn't accept this sort of glib salesmanship in any other area of medicine. As I mentioned, for the nearly 100-year history of scientific gender dysphoria, it has been diagnosed almost exclusively in young children, and mostly in boys. But over the last decade, large numbers of teenage girls have begun to claim they have gender dysphoria. Remember what I said earlier? We're not allowed to talk about it. It's just all of a sudden this is happening, but we're not allowed to talk about it. Prior to 2012, in fact, there was no scientific literature on gender dysphoria arising in teenage girls. Dr. Lisa Littman, then a Brown University public health researcher, used the phrase rapid onset gender dysphoria to refer to the subsequent sudden spike in transgender identification among teenage girls with no childhood history of gender dysphoria. I want y'all to do some homework. Go take a look at when the iPhone came out, the year. Go take a look at when social media appeared on cell phones. And I bet you there's a very, very interesting correlation with 2012. Let me know about that in the comment section too, or email me. If you know anything about it, I'd love to hear your side. The spike is not unique in America. It's not. We see it across the Western world. To offer just one statistic, there's been a decade-to-decade increase of over 4,400% in the number of teenage girls seeking treatment at the UK's National Gender Clinic. Across the West, teen girls are now leading demographics claiming to have gender dysphoria. And you see it? Tell me you don't see it wherever you go. All right? It's everywhere all of a sudden. They weren't just hiding because they were ashamed. This is something different. This is something very sinister. What's behind this social contagion? The spread of ideas, emotions, and behaviors through peer influence? One more instance of teenage girls sharing and spreading their pain. There's a long history of social contagion with this demographic. Anorexia and bulimia are also spread this way. And we know that teen girls are in the midst of the worst mental health crisis on historical record, with the highest rates of anxiety, self-harm, and clinical depression ever recorded. The teen girls susceptible to this social contagion are the same high anxiety, depressive girls who struggle socially in adolescence and tend to hate their bodies. Add that to a school environment where you can achieve status and popularity by declaring a trans identity. Add that to the teenage temptation to stick it to mom and dad. Add that to the intoxicating influence of social media, where trans activists push the idea that identifying trans and starting a course of testosterone will cure all of a girl's problems. Put all of those together, and you have a fast-spreading social phenomenon. I've spoken to families at top girls' schools who attest that 15, 20, or in one case, 30% of the girls in their daughter's 7th grade class identified as trans. When you see figures like that, you're witnessing a social contagion in action. There is no other reasonable explanation, regardless of what the left says. Don't believe a word that comes out of their putrid mouths. Don't. The left lies. They have no idea what they're talking about. These teen girls are in a great deal of pain. Almost all of them have at some point dealt with an eating disorder, engaged in cutting, or been diagnosed with other mental health comorbidities. And now they're being allowed to self-diagnose gender dysphoria by a medical establishment that's decided that its job is to affirm and agree with the trans-identified adolescents. You may not know the name Keira Bell. She's a young woman in the UK, very troubled in adolescence. She was rushed to transition in her teen years and came to regret it deeply. She underwent double mastectomy. She spent years on testosterone only to realize that her problems had never been gender dysphoria. She sued the UK's National Gender Clinic, and last December, after the High Court of Justice examined her case and the claims of similarly situated plaintiffs, she won her case. The court examined the medical protocols applied to Keira Bell, protocols identical to the ones we have right now in the United States. They were horrified that a young girl had been allowed to consent to begin a process of eliminating all her future fertility and sexual function by the age of 15, when she could not possibly have gauged or understood the magnitude of that type of loss. Hailed as a landmark case by the Times of London, The Economist, and even The Guardian, Bell's victory was widely viewed as a serious condemnation of the effort to fast-track teen girls to gender transition. One of the appalling things the court noticed was that the National Gender Clinic had been unable to show any psychological improvement in the adolescents it had treated with transitioning hormones. No improvement. It does nothing. If, as I suspect, you haven't read or heard about the Keira Bell case, that's because America's legacy media, the mainstream media we're always talking about, folks, they decided to pretend that the case didn't happen. Similarly, they continue to ignore or dismiss the stories of the thousands of detransitioners, young women who underwent medical transition, later regretted it, and attempted to reverse course. A lot of the treatments these girls have undergone are permanent, but they do what they can to try to reverse some of the effects. Somebody needs to go around and interview thousands of these girls and put it all in a book. That book needs to be published. That needs to happen now, right now. What a positive effect that would have on this country. All right. I don't mean anything against those people. They're suffering. All right. They're trying to fix the gigantic mistake they made. But the left doesn't want you to know that. They don't want you to hear about that. They want these people silenced. They want these people dead. Thus, it is that in the United States, this crisis among teenage girls gets treated as a political issue, a conservative issue, rather than a medical one. And so perhaps the greatest medical scandal of our time is dismissed as a conservative preoccupation. No discussion of gender ideology can ignore the ongoing movement to eradicate girls' and women's sports and all of their protective spaces. Many or most of the people pushing this are not transgender themselves. They're just activists. They're energized. They're bought and paid for. They seem to be winning. This movement promotes dangerous bills like the Equality Act, which would make it illegal to ever distinguish between biological men and women, and thus exclude a biological male from girls' sports teams or even women's protective spaces, whether it be a restroom, locker room, or a prison. And we all see what's happening with the pregnancies in California after they put these trans folks in the women's jails. Lots of women are being raped right now. You can't ban me off YouTube for that. You can't ban me off the airwaves for that. That's the truth. It is actually happening, and it is reported across the media. Plain and simple. True, true, true. We have these laws now in California. We have these laws now in the state of Washington. And as you might imagine, one result is that hundreds of biological male prisoners, many of them violent felons, have applied to transfer to these women's units. This is what I'm talking about, folks. For activists pushing this, it's not enough to create unisex bathrooms, a separate category for trans-identified athletes, or separate safe zones in prisons for trans-identified biological men. No, they're working to abolish all women's-only spaces, and they want to abolish them now. You remember what I said, folks. They don't want us to have a community and them to have a community and everyone else to have their own community. No, they want to destroy all communities and replace them with theirs. All right. The progressive left ideology consumes all other ideologies. The common thread running through these topics is that the truth is being obscured by gender ideology. Lies are told about the risks of transition treatments administered to young children, both to play down the dangers of those treatments and to exaggerate the degree to which those treatments are known to be helpful. Lies are told about the researchers and journalists who attempt to report on the crisis of social contagion among teenage girls undergoing transition treatments. And lies are told about the movement to eradicate women's protective spaces. The gender ideology behind these lies is a sibling of critical race theory. While critical race activists are teaching kids that they're largely defined by their skin color, gender activists are teaching kids that there are a great many genders and that only they know their true gender deep inside of them. And just as families who object to racial indoctrination in schools are told that their denials of racism are proof of racism, young women who object to biological males participating in girls' sports are told that their objections are proof of transphobic bigotry. Crazy. These mendacious dogmas have corrupted our K through 12 schools, our universities, and our legacy media, as well as our scientific journals and our medical accrediting organizations. The American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association, etc., to give you a sense, all right, to give you a sense of how far things have gone. I was informed late last year by a member of the National Association of Science Writers, an association of journalists with scientific backgrounds, that a member of the association's online forum had been expelled for mentioning my book on the transgender social contagion among these teenage girls. He hadn't even read the book. He hadn't even read the book, folks. He was just mentioned, all right? He had just mentioned that it sounded interesting, and for that, he was banned and labeled transphobic. This is in the science department, folks. The Science Publishing Association, all right? The Association of Science Writers, the journalists that write about science with scientific degrees, all right? This is literally sick. This is literally sick. They're going to start burning people who say that the earth is round soon. That's how out of whack this is, folks. Similarly, endocrinologists, psychiatrists, pediatricians, and researchers who are concerned about the risks of gender interventions report that they struggle today to get any of their research published. And public and private funding of research is almost entirely restricted to researchers who promote gender transition and downplay the risks. There are phalanxes, all right? Phalanxes, droves of young doctors right now, many of them in pediatrics or child psychology, all right? Child psychiatry, who are open about their belief that their primary job isn't medicine. It's social justice. They unreservedly celebrate the increase in transitioning treatment of young people and are inexcusably complacent about the risks of those treatments. Remember what I said earlier, guys. They have different core values than us. The Washington Post recently quoted some of these doctors to the effect that puberty blockers are fully reversible, which is not something that any honest doctor can truthfully claim to know. We simply don't have the data to know whether puberty blockers are fully physically reversible when applied to halt healthy puberty. And they're certainly not psychologically reversible. We're seeing a startling politicalization of medicine and science, which is symptomatic of a larger woke corruption of American society. Now, there's something I make a point of saying whenever I speak, and I say it for the simple reason that is true. All right? This is the simple reason that it is true. Transgender adults are some of the soberest and kindest people that I've met in my work as a journalist. Many of them seem to have been helped by transition, and they're leading admirable and productive lives. They also have no desire to harm women or push transition on any children. The gender ideology activists do not represent those people. My understanding of freedom includes a belief that society should allow adults to make consequential decisions about their lives, which includes choosing to undergo sex reassignment surgery if they want. And whenever I'm asked by a transgender adult, I use his or her chosen name and pronouns because this seems to me to be courteous and the right thing to do. But, and this is a big but, I never lie. This means I never say, and I will never say, that trans women are actual women, because they're not. I think reciting this lie leads, as we are seeing, to unjust and dangerous consequences for women and girls, as we spent most of this episode talking about with what happened in Loudoun County. That's why I put this part at the end, folks. It's the wake-up call. It's not courteous or right to parrot these lies. It's the cowardly surrender of women's welfare to the woke gods. And it's absolutely wrong. I'm also often asked why it is that the gender ideology activists are doing what they're doing. What possible justification could there be? For instance, for telling small boys that they might be girls and small girls that there might be boys. My best guess at an answer occurred to me while talking to these detransitioners. I heard repeatedly from these young women that while they were transitioning, they were angry and politically radical. They often cut off relationships with their entire families, having been coached to do so by online gender activists. Related to this, if you look, you'll notice a disproportionate number of the gender-confused people among the ranks of Antifa in cities like Portland, places that enable this behavior. In other words, chaos is the point. these troubled girls become prey for those who seek to recruit revolutionaries. There it is. Just as the destructive objective of critical race theory is to divide Americans racially, that of gender ideology is to disrupt the formation of stable families, the building blocks of American life. Remember, they want the destruction of the nuclear family, folks. How do you think they're going about it? So what do we do about it? How do we push back? First and foremost, we must oppose the indoctrination of children in gender ideology. There is no good reason for it, and it does real harm, real, actual, permanent harm. We can absolutely insist that all children treat each other kindly without indoctrinating an entire generation into gender confusion. Second, we must overcome our squeamishness and speak the truth in public wherever we find ourselves. We must refuse to recite the lies. And we must always clearly distinguish between transgender Americans, generally wonderful people, and the ideological transgender movement. These are the militant LGBT, the warring transgenders controlled by progressive elites, this wicked religious-like, cult-like ideology that I keep talking about. That is the movement that they speak of, the transgender ideological movement. All right? This movement seeks to warp children, weaken families, destroy our American way of life. This is a movement that would turn our children against themselves because its advocates know there is no greater harm, no quicker way to bring America to its knees than by driving our children to do themselves irreversible damage. The people pushing this ideology have gotten a head start on us by perhaps a decade, and now I think they have awakened the sleeping giant. The success of my book is one indication. The many state legislatures that are now debating these issues is another. These are our kids. These are our grandkids. Our future depends on winning this fight. All right. Woo! That was a long and heavy read, but it was necessary. You have to hear that. Most people have never, ever heard that, and it's one of the most important pieces of information that you can find on the internet. It explains exactly what's happening. It's the absolute truth as to what is happening to our children. I'm going to say this once, and I'll try to keep it short and sweet. Our children are being destroyed. Our little girls are literally being brainwashed and psychologically ruined. Our kids are being ripped from our arms. They're being turned against us. They're being radicalized. And folks, we're running out of time. We're running out of precious time. So I'm asking you to see the forest through the trees. I need you to look at the bigger pictures and start asking some hard questions that they don't want you to ask. Questions like why we should care about their feelings, why we should care about their ideas, why we should care about their rights when they intentionally hurt our children, while they intentionally seek to destroy our country, our way of life, while they actively and publicly hate us. Why? Why should we care? Why should we care about them? You should be pissed. You should be infuriated. If you're not, I'm telling you now, this is your notice. Right now is absolutely and definitely the right time to be pissed. They're fine with our daughters getting raped by brainwashed boys in skirts. Just so long. And you'll see they'll attack me for saying by brainwashed boys in skirts, even though it's in this context, even though I'm talking about this kid that raped a girl. The rape will be completely taken out of this, and they'll just trash me in the American Reveille. And they'll say, James Lake, what a piece of crap. He's talking about boys in skirts, that he should be called their proper pronoun. They'll defend this kid because they're out of their minds. Their core values are different. They have a completely different ideology. That's why I keep saying, I don't know how we come back from this. How do we deprogram millions of people? I don't think we do. I don't know if there's a solution. I don't know if this doesn't end with a bang. And I really hope it doesn't. I don't want it to. Nobody does. But it's scary. All right? It's scary. They're absolutely fine with our children being raped so long as it supports and emboldens their cause. All right? They want to destroy our way of life. The people that finance this, the people that run the show, they want to destroy our way of life and bring forth the Great Reset. That's right. You heard me say it. The Great Reset. But that, my friends, that's a conversation for another episode. But parents, make no mistake, it's time to stand up for our children. Like I said before, it's time to be pissed. It's time to make your voices heard. It's time for accountability and consequences. And it's time to take our culture and our country back from these demons once and for all. Again, folks, the website is www.americanreveille.com. That's REVEILLE. Please, 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 please find time, find a moment to just bookmark that website, sign up for the newsletter, and share this episode with friends and family. If you want to go a step further, you can always donate to us. You can help with our business expenses. You can help with the equipment costs, all right? There's a little button up there at the top. It says donate. You can click it. I appreciate everything. I really do. It keeps us going. I greatly appreciate the loyalty. I greatly appreciate the support, and just sharing the episode is all I need. It means the world to me that you're listening, that you care, and that you want to do something good for our beloved country. All right. I hope everyone has an amazing week, and I'll see you next time, guys, when we return for the 177th episode of American Reveille with James Lane. Have a good day, guys. Bye.